You ever notice how the world tries to tell you who you should be, what you should say, what you should believe? Kendrick Lamar has spent his entire career pushing back against that. And not just through his music, right, but through the way he carries himself, the choices he makes, and the battles he fights, both internal and external. Think about this. Just recently, Kendrick took home another Grammy, solidifying his place in history. And only days later, he took the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show, delivering a performance that reminded everyone why he stands among the greatest. But here's what's fascinating. He's clear that he's never done these things for our approval, right? He's always sort of played the long game, letting his work speak for itself. And that is Stoicism in action. So today, we're diving deep into Kendrick Lamar's journey, his upbringing, his music, his battles, and his philosophy to uncover the Stoic lessons hidden within his story. Kendrick was born and raised in Compton, California, a place synonymous with gang violence, poverty, and systemic struggles. But instead of letting that environment define him, Kendrick used it as fuel. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Kendrick is proof of that. His childhood, witnessing the harsh realities of his surroundings, could have broken him, but instead it made him. Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, who had a similar upbringing in some ways, had this to say about the lessons he learned in New York. "Every negative is a positive. The bad things that happen to me, I somehow make them good. That means you can't do anything to hurt me." Back on the West Coast, this much is clear about Kendrick Lamar. He observed, he listened, and he transformed his pain into poetry. Just like the Stoics teach, he didn't waste energy wishing his circumstances were different, right? He accepted them, he studied them, and then he made art out of them. Kendrick is no stranger to conflict. The industry, the media, even personal rivalries, his recent beef with Drake being one of the most talked about feuds in hip-hop. But here's what makes Kendrick different. He doesn't engage in drama for the sake of attention. He doesn't rant on social media. He lets his work speak for itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Instead of reacting impulsively, Kendrick has always been very methodical. His disses aren't random jabs, they're calculated, laced with layered meaning, and deeply rooted in artistic integrity. He fights battles worth fighting, and he does it on his own terms. If that's not power, I don't know what is. Now, let's skip forward to recent history. When Kendrick Lamar took the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show, and side note, definitely give it a watch if you haven't seen it yet, it was more than just a performance. It was a moment, a statement. But here's the thing, which we touched on a little earlier. Kendrick has never been obsessed with fame. He doesn't chase trends. He doesn't force himself into the spotlight. In fact, he disappears for years at a time, only to return with something more mind-blowing than before. A notable example of this is the 5-year gap between his 4th and 5th studio albums from 2017 to 2022. During this time, he made only a few guest appearances and gave no clear timeline for his next project, leaving fans speculating. This is one of the longer gaps that he's had in his career, but there are a handful of other similar experiences that make it clear that this is strategic on Kendrick's part. In my view, this demonstrates that he prioritizes internal growth over external validation, ensuring that whenever he does return back into the spotlight, he has something meaningful to say, right? Just like Marcus Aurelius, who frequently withdrew to reflect and refine his philosophy. That time away made all the difference. Another famous Stoic, Epictetus, said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Kendrick embodies this as well. He isn't concerned with constant validation. He doesn't care about that. He embraces silence. He lets his absence build anticipation because in his world, success isn't about being seen, it's about saying something that matters when you finally do speak up. This idea of Kendrick taking gaps of time away from the public eye also reminds me of Robert Greene's 16th law of power in his legendary book, The 48 Laws of Power, which says, "Too much circulation makes the price go down. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. If you're already established in a group, temporary withdrawal from it will make you more talked about, even more admired. You must learn when to leave. Create value through scarcity." I could go down a rabbit hole on this one, but this chapter is a very interesting read if you ever get around to going through this book by Robert Greene, but I digress. One of Kendrick's greatest strengths is his ability to navigate ego. Hip-hop is built on bravado, on proving you're the best, and yet Kendrick consistently reminds us that humility is just as powerful and impactful as confidence, if not more so. Going back to Kendrick's fourth studio album, he wrestles with his own pride and the dangers of self-importance. He acknowledges his flaws, his contradictions, and his humanity. Seneca put it this way: "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." Kendrick doesn't waste time trying to control how people see him or perceive him. He controls what he creates, and that's what gives his work longevity. It's rooted in something deeper than surface-level hype. So what can we learn from Kendrick Lamar's path? Here are 4 key Stoic lessons to take with you today. Number 1, accept your reality, then master it. Like Kendrick growing up in Compton, we don't always get to choose our circumstances, but we do get to choose what we do with them. Number 2, control your emotions, control the outcome. Reacting impulsively is easy, right? Restraining yourself and responding with precision is more powerful than you know, and more difficult. Choose your battles like a Stoic. Number 3, success isn't about being seen, it's about meaning. Kendrick disappears when he needs to. He doesn't chase the spotlight. He ensures that when he steps into it, he has something valuable to say. You don't have to prove yourself constantly, just focus on mastery. Which brings us to number 4, master your ego before it masters you. Confidence is important, but so is humility. Stay aware of your faults. Challenge yourself. Never let your pride make you stagnant. Here's a challenge for you. Where in your life are you letting external noise dictate your actions? Are you chasing validation instead of meaning? Are you reacting when you should be observing? Think about how Kendrick makes his moves. He doesn't let the moment define him. He defines the moment. He stays persistent. He lets his work do the talking. He doesn't force himself into the spotlight. He earns his place in it. Now ask yourself, are you living that way? Or are you letting outside forces shape your path? Maybe there's something you've been holding back on, a decision, a move, a risk you know you need to take. Maybe it's fear of judgment. Maybe it's fear of failure. But here's the truth. The longer you wait, the more power you give to those fears. And the only way forward, action. Thoughtful, deliberate, stoic action. So take a step today, no matter how small. Maybe it's speaking your truth when it matters. Maybe it's choosing focus over distraction, right? Maybe it's finally betting on yourself instead of waiting for permission. Whatever it is, there's a step waiting to be taken. If this was helpful, or if you've got some wisdom of your own to share, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. On that note, there's another Stoic idea that's been on my mind lately. Click this video and let's explore it further.